What do I think performance management is? At its core, it is the process of managers, employees, and peers having conversations about how things are going in the workplace in order to improve professional development and achieve organizational objectives. I think the big difference between in performance management before and performance management now is if you think back 15, 20, 25 years ago, performance management was a requirement for an organization to do, and it wasn't centered around the employee experience. What has changed since then is that your employees' experience and their desire to stay at your company has become more important. And so their experience of your performance management has changed and it has become more valuable. And so it's not just a top-down conversation where the company is telling an employee how they think they're doing. It's actually a conversation where the manager is helping the employee learn how to do better and learn how to grow in their career. And it's more focused on that positive upward movement and development. I think the world of performance management has expanded. So at its very core, it is at least an annual conversation with the manager, but that's just that kind of top-down, here's how I think you're doing. What's changing now is trying to find places to get the employee voice in multiple places. And so you're having that manager-employee set of conversations, not just on an annual or biannual basis, but on a more regular professional development cadence. So at least once a quarter, maybe once a month, but you're also bringing in peer feedback around how someone is doing in their projects. And so you're getting more of a 360 point of view as well. And so you need input from other people and you need a place to keep that. The other thing that you need is you need to really pull the employee voice into the whole process, and that's where engagement comes in. Because it isn't just about how the company thinks their employees are doing, it's how the employees perceive their value to the company. And so that comes into play as well. And then once you have all of these pieces of data, and if you have a rich data set, you have an HR team that can go back and they can look at trends and they can see, here are teams that are performing really well, or here are individuals that are performing really well. Here's how they think. Here's how they feel about their roles in organizations. How do we start to build up that same set of experiences for other people to help drive performance? And so that, in a nutshell, it becomes a feedback loop for performance management. It's a lot of different points of data. It's a lot of different points of view and perspectives on an individual's development. And then it's all looking towards how does this align with our organizational objectives and how do we use this to motivate individuals to achieve more at our organization and to grow in their roles as well. I think the best case scenario is you need to have an effective HCM, and you probably have one already. And then when you're looking at your point solutions, your best-in-class tools, you have to just make sure they have the integrations to work well. So you want to make sure they have single sign-on. You want to make sure that they show up in Microsoft Teams or in Slack or the places your employees are doing their work. And so that will remove that barrier of utilization and that will remove that level of complexity. So you just have to check with your vendor and make sure they have what you need from an integration standpoint. And then it should be as seamless as you opening any app on your iPhone. A really good analogy for performance management and thinking about the tools you need is, thinking about farming. So I use a watering can to water the plants in my house. I use a garden hose to water the vegetable patch in my front garden. And if I were a farmer with acres and acres of land, I would need an irrigation system to get water out to all of those things. And the same thing is true about your tools that you use for performance management. Is it something that you can do in-house with Google Docs because you have just a dozen employees and you can track that? Do you need something basic that's an out-of-the-box setup for a couple of hundred employees? Or do you need something that's going to be, broad scale for a lot of offices in a lot of places in a lot of languages with their own unique processes that you need to accommodate for? So what's interesting is that there actually aren't any other irrigation systems for performance management. There aren't any best-in-class performance management systems really meant for organizations with tens of thousands of employees. A lot of performance management systems and point solutions like CultureAmp or like Lattice are phenomenal, but they tap out at around 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 employees. They don't have the ability to support greater complexity. And that's what makes Betterworks unique. And I'm really excited for when the rest of the performance management tools come into the enterprise space, because that boosts innovation even more. But right now, when you're thinking about it, if you're a large company, your options are either working with an HRIS module that's probably several years old and is very lightly maintained by an organization, or Betterworks as the best-in-class option, or maybe something else that is also a couple years old, maybe doing a part of what they do. There are maybe one or two that do call themselves enterprise organizations or enterprise serving. And then you have to start looking at the feature set. Is all you want a review tool, or do you also want engagement, and you also want goal tracking, and you also want data and analytics, or anything related to skills? That's when you have to start figuring out what is the world you want in performance management. And Betterworks happens to both serve large organizations and have a really broad spectrum of performance management tools.